Welcome to the R7 podcast, sponsored by M is Good. R7 is an innovative, God-inspiring process that explores personal and professional purpose. R7 analyzes 7 strategies to transform your vision and find direction in your organizational marketing. R7 establishes clarity and guidance for the gift we call life. Welcome to 2025. I'm on a new set here. Super excited to start this year with you. Today we have on the podcast a very special friend. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you about our 7 process and our destiny vision strategy, brand communication, think, action. This particular podcast is going to be about think and about action. And I have one of my good buddies here, Mr. Ben Hughes. Really excited for you to be on the podcast today. We are going to be unpacking think in action. And, Ben is the president of and founder of the Guardian Group. And before we get started, Ben, tell us about the Guardian Group, what it does, who you are. Ben is also an amazing coach at Liberty University, and he's a hockey coach. So we're talking about the Guardian Group today. So Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Awesome intro too. First time I've seen that. I love it. A couple titles to you. I guess also I'd say congratulations. Shout out to you as well for getting your most recent title of a doctor. Officially, that's a lot of hard work and long time coming. So congrats.
13. It only took me 13 years.
I don't actually think I realized it took you that long. That's incredible. Holy perseverance.
Yeah. So it's proof that you don't have to be smart. You just have to be committed.
That's right. Well, yeah. I don't want to say you embody that because I think you're smart too, but you embody smart and committed.
So, wow. Thanks.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me on. Quick intro what Guardian is. You kind of talked about how can we provide direction and clarity, for families, specifically Christian families out there in the hockey world. We kind of gear it back to, our 3 values we have, a play on the same letter D, but discipleship, development, and direction. Those are kind of the 3 values we really want to hit onto. And so I think for me, it really has just started with, kind of flipping the script, your own journey, whether it's through life in any type of sport, but my journey through hockey, kind of how I felt like I had kind of the world at my fingertips in terms of opportunity. But how can I pair that with, being a believer, but kind of a little bit of a lone ranger in my faith, not really having too many spiritual giants or mentors in my life that also understood the game of hockey as well. So it just kind of, I really feel like one day God kind of uploaded a vision to me of just, man, what's it look like for kind of the world of hockey advisors or agents to be unapologetically Christian and not just help you sign a contract or not just help you get to a hockey camp or an opportunity in the team. So we can go further into that, through the podcast too.
Yeah. Let's pause there for a second because you just hit a hot spot. I know we got a lot to talk about today, but, my doctoral dissertation was on exploring faith with professional male hockey players. And I don't think we've actually offline have talked about the results of that study, have we?
We haven't. I'm excited. Might as well do it right now.
Yeah. So, it's just a little bit of what you just said there. I had a phenomenological qualitative study on exploring faith among professional male hockey players. So what I was doing is I was just exploring faith and pulling out themes. And so I ended up having 5 themes in the study out of these 8 professional players that were pretty apparent. And one of them, the overarching one, was that their identity was central to who they were. So they weren't a Christian. They weren't a hockey player who was a Christian. They were a Christian who happens to play hockey. That was the thing. And so everything kind of was, if you think about like a door, like a door has hinges, like the identity was the hinge, was the door that the hinges swinging off. So their decision making, um, you know, one of the themes that came out was, a lot of the team went out to strip bars and they just wouldn't go because it was counterproductive to who they were in Christ.
Mhm.
And so everything in faith expression was another theme that came out. So how they were expressing their faith. There was
Yeah.
one particular player that had an NHL scout say, "Listen, if you want to make it to NHL, you got to stop praying at sunrise. Like that's just not gonna work." And so the expressions of faith, faith identity,
Yeah.
just really powerful stuff on how their identity really uh, helped them throughout their day make decisions.
It's interesting because even on the first example, how many of us, I would probably say I'm one of them, that my identity and my belief in Christ in general is going to, and just the fact of being in a committed marital relationship, uh, but keeping me from going to a strip bar. But the the question that would be interesting, okay, Christians, are we going, or even not Christians, are you not going to go because of the fear of what the consequence could be? Maybe the coaching staff finds out the next day, or actually a. We want to turn back the page to my junior stories. I got a good one. It segues real good
Yeah,
into
go
that.
for it.
It was I'll leave the organization off the story here, but I was playing junior hockey, and um, we're having a regular practice, and all of a sudden, coach lines us up on the goal line. And I was captain of the team too. And sometimes, they give me a little heads up of what we're going to do ahead of time, or if the team's in trouble or whatnot. No idea what was going on. This one lined up on the goal line. Practice was seemingly over. And they said, all right, everyone who went to the strip club last night, down and back. And it probably continued. They probably skated on for maybe 5 minutes. Doing suicide is an eternity. Like, that's a
Right. It's
long
a long
time.
time. Yeah.
And so even if it was 5 minutes, like that's 5 minutes too long. Fortunately for me and for my story and testimony, like, I stayed on the goal line. I didn't go. Uh, you know, but then that always kind of has stayed with me. Like, okay, well, like, those were consequences, and like the team wanted to make sure that their image in town was intact, and above reproach, and high character guys of the community, and going to schools and hospitals and things like that. But they didn't want to be known for that. And but the question remains, okay, now, do you not go because the consequence that you have to skate, or do you not go because that's just not who you are and that's not where your identity lies? So that's probably an interesting step one question for maybe early believers or non-believers.
I mean, you definitely have to be a seasoned believer, and the way I quantify a seasoned believer versus sort of somebody who's not seasoned, it's somebody who's taken their eyes off themselves and has a bigger view. Like,
Mhm.
super excited that I'm saved and it's all about me, which is part of emotional intelligence. We'll talk about that in a second. But then there's a bigger picture of like, I'm a Christian. I need to support Israel. Like I need to support Israel because that's what God's, like that to me is a bigger picture question of a seasoned Christian. But in this context of my study, it was interesting because like the whole team's going and you're playing in the NHL. And so do you not go because you're not part of the team and you're one of those guys that are better than, as you've seen that way. So like, you know, it's very much a performance driven
Mm.
culture that you need the team clicking in order to work. And if you're not there, are you outside the lines and, seen as an outcast or somebody who's better or somebody who just doesn't want to do what they want to do? So I think the pressures of going there are extreme
Yeah, that
for
I
that
agree.
seasoned Christian who's just made it, not seasoned Christian who just made it to the NHL, which is,
What were the so identity? What were the five themes?
yeah. So it was identity and your development of your identity. It was faith expression. There was also this idea of, is my faith, am I confident in my faith was one that came out. Uh, yeah. So let's get back to the guardian group. Enough about the study. But before we do that, let's just talk about high and low emotional intelligence. So I want to de- define this for everybody out there who's never heard this term before. But when you're so the term is emotional intelligence, and when you're high emotional intelligence, this is like I understand the bigger picture. I want to win for the team. I'm willing to sacrifice some things, and I know that I'm supposed to sacrifice some things, and that's okay, right? Uh, the low emotional intelligence, it's really all about you. It's all about you, and you're seeing the world through you. And so the example I use in the hockey space is, I'm skating up ice, put next to my opponent. That my opponent looks at the referee, sees the referee's not looking, he punches me in the face. Okay, what do I do next? Do I just skate on and say, oh, I'm going to put one on the board, or do I punch him back? So retaliatory penalties are usually low EI. And so I also use the example, the lowest of low EI moments is when you're on the power play in the offensive zone and you have the puck, you have puck possession, and you take a penalty. That to me says the player has no idea what's going on, right? They take a penalty. They don't really care about the bigger picture. It's all about. I also know that, like there are hardworking penalties and there are like low emotional intelligent penalties. So I get the difference between that too. But so low emotional intelligence, you're really just it's all about you, man.
And
And those type of people on teams, they drain you. They drain you because they're always taking penalties. They always want to talk about themselves. They don't want to buy into the bigger picture. They're very cancerous. And so this is where doubt comes in. Doubt will kill a team, will kill a championship team where it's opportunities to be a championship team. But so yeah, so we're talking about the guardian group and providing clarity, direction, and emotional intelligence, and how do we connect this all together? And so I want to connect it with this idea that your second thought and your first action. So as a parent, my second thought versus my first thought, first action. So like in a second thought, first action, this is like premeditated murder, right? Where you've thought this thing through and now you're going to take action on your words.
I
And
think
so are you setting yourself up for failure or success? Sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, sorry, I thought you were done there. Yeah, that's interesting. The weight of your the weight of your response, if it's timed, if it's your second thought. So there's probably more time between your second thought and your first thought. So so if someone knows it's your second thought too, i.e. your wife or someone, it better be right. But because there's more consequences, like what you just said though, too. Like there's more consequences with that with premeditated murder.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, too. So like that's one interesting way to think about it. Um, yeah, it's fun, but also at the end of the day, you chose a good topic for someone who's grinding with toddlers right now. I have 3-year-olds and a 1-year-old. They're both oldest is almost 4, youngest is almost 2. We're grinding, we're not sleeping. So sometimes I am living in first thought, first action.
Yeah.
But it's
Very reactionary. You're very much on your heels, right? And so you've got to, it's time sensitive. So you have to like react pretty quick. You're not necessarily on your toes and you're not thinking, okay, like if this happens, I'm gonna do this happens, I'm gonna do that. So this is emotional intelligence. And like we talk about MTT sometimes, and like MTT is very much planning to win. And we plan to win, we think through the different scenarios. With kids, small kids, it's hard because you're on defense the whole time, right? You don't even
yeah.
on offense. But
Funny, I was just on a phone call with a good friend of mine recently and today on the way home, and they have their third. We are expecting our third in a couple months. Shout out. There you go.
wow,
There
congratulations.
you go.
Yeah.
It's still pretty early, but starting to tell some people now, and guess I just told the world. But you go from man on man to then now we're playing zone, and I'm like,
Yeah.
What's it like? Tell me, give me the inside scoop. And at the end of the day, we go from having to like we're reacting to if you can get to a place of being prepared, being proactive with something as, I don't want to say simple as being a parent, but you can take that to the bank with anything in life.
Yeah.
Like what you're saying with your either R7 and this goal as well and planning
Yeah.
to win. I almost wore my shirt.
Uh, uh, yeah. So when we talk about that's one thing I love about the guarding groups, we're talking about clarity and direction. That is very much a second thought, right? It's not something that's completely reactionary. Like, having the experience and the wisdom and the education of where your kid should go, right? Is what the guarding group does, right? And then talking about what does that mean calculated. We've heard oftentimes in the hockey space that it's not just going to a place, it's going to the right place,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
And not only that, but I think even, the saying that I felt so clearly like, wow, this is I feel like almost a profound thing for that after reflecting off of my own experiences going through the hockey world and whatnot too. I was so focused on what team I was playing for, what the title, what the logo and the jacket was. I was in the stands, who's watching me. Um, all these things are so external. The team I'm playing with, the level that I'm playing in, why do I care about who's watching me, who's in the stands, who's approving of me. Pretty much it all came down to external. Like what logo, what school, what team am I on or have an opportunity to go to? That's what it became. Um, and I think God really kind of reverse engineered it for me. And a lot of it was in the genesis of the Guardian group was um, it it's not always about it's important to go to the right spot and it's important to go to the right fit for you. Um, but more often, it's not about where you're going; it's about who you're becoming.
And then
And
that's really good.
I think that's what our heart is in general. That's the mile, maybe or the 1,000-foot view. Is that's what Guardian is? Is we want to come alongside you, mom and dad, who maybe know a lot about hockey or maybe don't, but we have families that are represented in both those categories. Um, we want to come alongside you and your son and help them navigate this the best way possible to where you're informed and you understand, but so does he. But you're also getting development for um, there's multiple experts involved. It's not just Ben Hughes walking through this journey with you. And yeah, my experience can speak for itself a little bit with, where I had gone and played, but and who I know and the connections and especially within the Christian, there's the hockey world and then there's the Christian hockey world. So it's even smaller. We all know each other. And so leveraging that connection and that network is great and valuable. But so is having someone like you on the team with being a sports psychologist and helping mentally with these players. And with Ron and his experience with his skill and development, and with Chris or with others and their strength conditioning. So we want to make sure that we're providing resources, practical resources as well for the development too. Development of your mind, heart, and body. And that's where the discipleship comes in play as well too.
So let's just kind of slow down a little bit and let's talk about what you just said there and who you are becoming. So, and let's put it out there. If you're not part of a guarding group, you know, what it all offers: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, right? Who are you becoming if you're not in that environment? What's the end road? Like if you're to do a trajectory and say, okay, I want to get over here, right? Like I want to be a millionaire. I want to come over here. Well, what's going to give you that straightest path to it? And you kind of think, okay, what other millionaires done before? So who is it that that the guardian group would like to see them become? What's the end look like? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I think, well, it's you could probably say the same answer for all, but I think, everyone's going to have their own specific goals. So yeah, we want to start there. But even before that, we want to make sure that their minds, we always want to be learners, right? So how can we help them be growth oriented, so then they're continuing to always learn, grow, ask questions, learn in their faith, grow closer to the Lord. Have that as, how can we help them be growth oriented minded individuals from the player for players, that is,
yeah. But
and
then
continuing.
let me just play the parent's advocate.
Yeah,
I'm paying you X amount of money now. I want my kid in the
mhm,
USHL.
that's right.
Like
Yeah.
that's the goal, right, man? Like to
Mhm.
get him to the highest level possible. Like
Mhm.
that's what we want as a
Mhm.
player to say, I got is that
Yeah,
something you get as a parent?
you know, that sounds really good. And, Lord willing, we can continue to do that and provide, opportunities at higher levels for those players and families. I think the cliche thing, and the thing that we're focused most on above that, is the process.
Mhm.
How, like, the result can be the USHL, but then what's next after that? Is it going to be D1? Okay, then after that, is it going to be the NHL? Okay, but then after that, what is it? Are you gonna have to totally recalibrate your entire life because you're so focused, and that's where we talk about identity. That's where your identity lied, and so we want to make sure that first and foremost, I guess that's the answer, is that your identity is in Christ. And we are I am constantly having to remind myself too, chief sinner here as well. But we're also having to constantly remind parents and players too where our identity is. That doesn't excuse us from, like, okay, we don't have to get after it. We don't have to get after it in the gym, or I don't have to get after it and call 15 coaches for this player. That doesn't excuse that, because both of those happen as well too. Um, I think first and foremost, we're making sure the identity is rooted in Christ, um, and then helping them learn what a process could be for them. A lot of these kids are 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. Um, if we can help them with their goals, but kind of reverse engineer it, work backwards. Yeah, I know your goal is at USHL, but is your goal to USHL, you know, Monday, January 13th? If I ask you how you're going to get there today, what are you doing? I don't know. I just want to go to the USHL.
Mhm.
Well, you know, do you have specific, measurable, actionable goals that are also realistic and tangible too? So that's what we want to do and be a part of.
I love that, man. Because I could say, yeah, then you want to be the president of Liberty University. What are you doing now to become president of Liberty? Well, I think I should be president one day. Okay, well, let's look at other presidents that have come in. Where did they come from and what did they do? Or I want to be president of the United States. Okay, well, this is what you have to do to become that. And I love embracing the process. I love embracing the growth mindset. This is beautiful. And so there's a commitment level and a sacrifice that has to happen on their end in order to achieve that goal. Is
That's
that what
right.
you're saying?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Those textbooks, Dr. Hughes over here, right? Those textbook answers for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's cool.
Yeah.
You know, um, there's one question I love to ask in the consulting side of things I work with when at Evidence Good. And the question is, what is the future you're fighting for? Because if we can define the future you're fighting for,
Mhm.
then you're really gonna be truthful with that answer. There's a whole lot of sacrifice that comes with that answer and chasing that.
Yeah.
And so it makes it a little bit easier. It's very vision-esque, but it makes it easier to say, okay, I'm willing to do this because this is the future I'm chasing. So like go to the USHL. Okay, well, how many times do you work out a week? Once? Okay, we need to bump that up to six. And what is your programming schedule? And what your workouts off ice and on ice. You know, what's that look like? Oh, you're on the ice twice a week and you're working out once a week. That is not the trajectory to get you there. You need to talk to Chris Kerr. And then once you get that programming, are you going to do it?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. So you said, what future are you fighting for?
What is the future you're fighting for?
Let's go. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like what you had said earlier. Having that perspective, yeah. And if we can have an eternal perspective, that's even greater. But a perspective in general, depending on the context and situation, is very
Yeah.
powerful.
So I know, parents like, I want my son or daughter to be a community leader, or I want my son or daughter to be a Christ like community leader. Right. And so you go, okay, or is it, I want my son or daughter to play in the USHL? That is not the future you're fighting for. Every player is heading to the BHL, which is the beer hockey league. No matter what level you're at, you're headed to the BHL. And so that can't be the end game. It can't
Mhm.
be. There will be crisis at the end of that.
Mhm. Yeah, and we
I
talked
found
about it
myself,
within. Oh,
but
sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I found myself in crisis when I stopped playing, and I found myself on a curb in a city I never been in because my identity was so focused on hockey.
Well, right.
And so that can't be the end goal. That is disastrous. In fact, there's lots of statistics out there. I think the NBA, within the 3 to 5 years of NBA players leaving the NBA, they go bankrupt because their identity and they're buying stuff, and then that someday ends, and their identity's in crisis.
Mhm.
So when you're talking about, the identity of what you want your son or daughter to become, you know, um, we have the 8 attributes of a healthy identity, which is good, and it's not really Christian. It comes from a sports psychology, um, study. But if it is, you come from a Christian family and you want your son or daughter to be Christ-like, then there's something about chasing what God has for your life, and
Mhm.
providing excellence and accountability and commitment, through that. And that's why I
Yeah.
love what you said about the process, because if you embrace that process and become the best version of yourself, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, then we're on to something. Then, the USHL, it's kind of a weird end around to think about it, because then the
Yeah.
USHL or the NHL comes into play. But just focusing on the NHL is not going to get you there. It's about
Yeah. It's a byproduct.
maximizing your development, human
Yeah.
potential.
Yeah. It's a byproduct. It could be, I think that's the beauty too of what we're saying with it's not the end. Like when you achieve your goal, if it is Division 1 or USHL, okay, well, what's next? Now you're gonna have to redefine everything. Are you starting over? Again, um, I think the ability to um, have that perspective, but also like you talked about earlier, hey, if you want to be a millionaire or you want to be the president, um, what are you doing? You know, I would say same thing, but also proximity too. So maybe an example or is the scripture of just simply iron sharpens iron. You know, who are you hanging out with? If you want to be in the USHL, are you seeking after those top guys in your age or on your team or in your city? Are you skating with them, working out with them as well? What's your coach? What's your development program look like? Like who's doing it, or are you kind of doing it your own too? I'd say iron sharpens iron. That's another, I think, kind of cool aspect of what we're doing at Guardian, but also, you know, just what other guys are doing out there too is, the proximity. I think about, you as well. Guys like you in my own life, making sure I have guys like you and other guys that um, love the Lord, but there's fruit in multiple aspects of their lives. Like I can experience the fruit of the Holy Spirit by being a friend and dealing with you and seeing how you do business, but also I can see the fruit of your dedication and hard work, you know, through some material things as well too, or it's just through your own time commitment in general, or looking at your schedule when you text me when you're free. I'm like, whoa, So I think it's important to have people like that in your life as well. Um, I don't want to say to put on the pedestal to always aspire to, but to have as a sense of inspiration, but also accountability too.
Mhm.
Um, which has been great for me in my own life, and I think that's great to continue to, have for others as well, be for others.
So I want to bring this back to the original, R7 think and action. The original thought as a parent who's looking to get an advisor might be, right? First thought, first action. I need an advisor so my son or daughter can play at the highest level. That's first thought, first action, right? To me, second thought, first action could be, you know, I want my son or daughter to play at the highest level, but what are they going to become as they go through this process? I need somebody who will help them with that.
Mhm.
See, now that becomes a little bit more strategic.
Yeah.
And, to me, you can be, you're responsible for that second thought first, actually. You're responsible for that low EI. You're responsible for that high EI through strategy and thinking of what kind of person do I want to become through this. Which
Mhm.
goes back to the question to me, what is the future I'm playing for? You know,
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
I don't know. I just
that's
feel
a
like
good. That, that's
when
good.
you go ahead.
Well, that's a good. That's where when we have family interviews with it, that's one of the first questions we just ask is, okay, why are we here?
Yeah.
Why are we here, and what's Billy want to do, or what do you want Billy to do?
Yeah.
And who's this really about?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think the first thought, first action. I mean, it's not bad to want that for yourself or for your son or
Yeah.
daughter, but you're right. If that is the answer, if that is the rooted why, um, I mean, it's either gonna be really satisfying when you get there and you're good enough, and then frustrating after, or frustrating to get there.
That
So I think either way, you're left frustrated at some point too. So, um, yeah, that's a good
it definitely
question.
answers the why. It's just not a very good why.
Yeah, well, it doesn't transcend.
Yeah.
It's transactional, not
Very
transformational.
transactional.
Yeah, transactional, transformational difference for sure.
And and I think coming out of, hockey or any sports really, it is a performance based model, where performance drives every decision making. And I think that's what the Guardian Group is different. Our performance isn't going to drive our decision making. It's who we're becoming in our identity that drives our decision making. It's drastically different to me.
Mhm.
So play at the highest level, triple A. The letters become important, double A, triple A.
Mhm.
All that's important. Well, if we really go deep on this, this is what separates the Old Testament and the New Testament. Where the Old Testament's all about the legalism, right?
Mhm.
The New Testament's all about the love of Christ.
Yeah.
You know, Christ does not care about how much money we make, what
Mhm.
kind of job title we have. He cares about how much we love him and we glorify him,
Yeah.
which is a not a performance based model, right? It's
Mhm.
about loving him. And so like becoming Christ like, which, who's going to judge that? Only you. That's between you and your heavenly father.
And
But, so when we're providing clarity and direction, you know, and shaping, you know, help shape somebody's walk. We know there's peaks and valleys in that. Things are really awesome and then things are really bad. And things are awesome, things are going to be bad. It's very much a peaks and valleys
Mhm.
journey going through
Yeah.
the grind of hockey. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and even on the on like a very practical level too, when you're because let's face it, the majority of my conversations are with parents,
Yeah.
um, and then getting you guys involved in doing some of the practical grunt work of some discipleship and development with the players. Um, but when your kid isn't accepted by somebody else, I mean, my daughter's 3, and when that happens, it breaks my heart.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, let alone, like, when she's like, old enough in 15 years to be passionate about something and, like, have some glimmer of hope of a potential future, and so I think some of it, I don't wanna say somewhat of a psychiatrist, but seems like it. Like, like, that's kind of what we're here for too, because we have the perspective that either I went through it already or we've seen something like this with some of our other families as well. So I don't want to say like, yeah, there's misery finds company, but there's sometimes it feels good and it's comforting knowing that like, okay, it's not just us. Like this has happened before, or like, okay, even if this does happen, even if my kid was traded or didn't make this team or was released here, um, someone else cares and loves my son too, and is out there fighting for him
Mhm.
and pouring into him and praying for him as well. And so that's what we're journeying through with them. You know, uh, it's fun. It's managing, like you said, there's peaks and valleys, and how can we manage them and not get too low, not get too high. Uh, you said something that I do want to address, and
Yeah.
I do see it. I see it practically, more just hands on every day, day to day with coaching, but then also imparting this kind of perspective and challenge, and I guess advice on the guardian side of it as well. It is okay. How can I really make hockey a vehicle for looking more like Jesus?
The
And as a player, like you talked about, you know, first thought, first reaction, flashback, you know. But if I have a heart posture, and is that Slash going to know? Because we all know the retaliation gets called, and
Yeah.
you're going to be in the box, and then you're on the penalty kill, and then do you get scored on? Then you're hurting your team because you were selfish. Pretty classic situation there. We've probably all been guilty of it. Something along the lines in the hockey world if we played or coached. Uh, But how can I really get into that heart and mind posture of, and I really want to help like this game going through the fire. Like I want it to refine me. I want it to help me look. And so those are our prayers before the games. Those are some of
Yeah.
the keys to our game. Uh, at Liberty, some is, I'll have a system point, I'll have a habit point, and I'll have a spiritual cultural point too. And it's always that spiritual cultural point that I impart to the guardian as well is, and how can I really how can I leverage hockey to look more like Christ? And I came to Liberty when I was 23 after not playing for 2 years. I had aged out of juniors. I played in the USHL and played at high levels. But my perspective at 23 versus, guys who are 20, 19, 18 years old, may not seem like a lot now, but I think then it was a lot different with age. Um, and my perspective of not playing for 2 years, I was grateful. And I really felt like then I played better than where I played earlier my junior career because I wasn't playing for anybody else. You kind of talk about the audience of one, things like that too. I remember Carson Wentz really blew that up. He won the Super Bowl, years ago with Philly, things like that. As kind of cliche as it is, it really is true. How can my identity be so locked into Jesus? How can me playing hockey be a form of worship to him? How can me skating, because he gave me the ability to skate and to be healthy and to be a sober mind and to have clarity and to be able to think and process things. How can all this be worship? How can I hold my tongue and not speak death into someone, but life into somebody. How can that be worship if I'm sitting on the bench? If I want to drop a bomb, or if I want to yell at somebody or criticize somebody, or like anything that's negative, that's just death. There's death and life. Like the tongue has the power to give death and life. And what are you choosing? And I think in those moments of fire, because sports is so high emotional, it's so fiery that I think it has a great, like the temperature is higher,
Yeah.
right? Therefore, like what does a higher temperature do when you're molding like jewelry, right? It melts it, and it refines it even better. It has the opportunity to. And I think so many times I failed to do that through my AAA and junior career. I let the fire define define me, and I was more reactionary. Probably one and one. First reaction, first thought, first reaction.
Yeah.
Perspective change away from the game, getting back rooted with the Lord, and deeper in my faith and more mature that way. Man, I'm playing free because I'm playing
Mm.
for Him. Like I get to do this. I get to play hockey. Like, wow, I never thought I would do it again. The perspective switch is totally different. And I think that freedom that I carried through my 3 years of playing at Liberty um, was motivating for me. Like, man, imagine if I would have tapped into that when I was 15, or like, I
Right.
don't know, just so therefore I think God has me in an office of coaching and advising in the guardian group. And I'm thankful for it. And it's fun.
Yeah. Perspective's everything. And I don't know if it's, you said you're a failure. I just really look at it as being mindful and learning. Like you start off with the growth mindset, and so we're always learning, growing, and changing, and so like it's just you've grown tremendously, in the mindset side of things of understanding that bigger picture, which
Mhm,
now puts you in a consultant role, which is,
mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, awesome, man. So I just want to, really kind of summarize, as we power down here. It's been 40 some minutes of a podcast, which is pretty cool. So, what did we learn? What did we gain from today, Ben? What's kind of your take home? And I'll
You
give
did.
you
Well, I think I gleaned from you a little bit. I mean, I couldn't help it. I had to write down, you know, what future are you fighting for? I love
mine.
that. I think so. If there's a takeaway I'm taking away from you, I'm taking that away from myself personally. Is what future are you fighting for? I'll just real quick too, and we're our small group. My wife and I are a small group here at church. We're going through a book right now, called Habits of the Household. And
Okay.
how can we get into different rhythms and routines for ourselves individually, then for our families corporately. What rhythms and routines can we put into place to kind of automate things to be proactive, not reactive, but then also to make sure my mental and spiritual capacity isn't spent on reacting. Because now that the reaction decision's already been made. Yeah, we do this Sunday nights. Yeah, we do this before dinner. Or yeah, this is just part of our culture of our family. It's just automated. Um, Now I have a higher threshold of capacity to be present with my kids, be present with my wife, to be present with the Lord, and to be abiding in Him. And so, um, what you just said, what future are you fighting for, I think ties in really good with what we're just now stepping into with kind of this book, but also just how we're growing our family, what we want it to look like. And I think from there too, it's okay. What are those things can I list from the Guardian Group and to coaching and the different buckets that we all carry along with us?
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think what I gleaned really is just, from a parent perspective, where can I put my son or daughter in the best situation to be successful?
Mhm.
And that's where I kind of had an idea where this podcast was going to go, but I like how it finished. Where like what I'm kind of gleaning from it is that it's okay to have that first action, first thought, And, it's not a failure when you do that. It's just a pivot to say, you know what, this is actually, I want something different here. And looking through the lens of what am I fighting for? You know, as a parent, I want I think everybody knows in the podcast, but I have two kids that are 18, 20 years old. At the end of the day, I want them to be God fearing, men of God that are changing the world for Christ. And they're going to go through stuff. I know that, and they're going to fail. And I get that, just like I did, just like you did, you know. But so as a parent, I would just want to put them in the best environment possible to succeed. And I think the Guardian Group does that. The hockey is a very dysfunctional world, youth hockey and juniors. It's very dysfunctional. I think it gets a little bit better at college, but youth and
It's starting not to, but
yeah, yeah. In juniors is just, man, it is a ride of your life, and you want people around you that share those same values as you.
never.
And Guardian Group, it definitely does that. So
That's right, and that's thanks for saying that. And I think where I've been stretched on in that this year too is getting into the nitty gritty details of junior leagues and rules and policies, and seeing people act and be of the world, and me to be like, no, this is it. This is the standard. This is the rules, and this is how this family or this player deserves to be treated or deserves this outcome because of this right here. But you're one, So I think I think a guardian, so I've even thought this year, like, okay, knowledge is power too, and being able to be equipped with some of these to protect them. Guardians of Galaxy, like, how can we protect families too? Not to put your boys are going to go through the grind. They're going to go through stuff that's going to make them stronger. And we don't want to bubble wrap our kids,
right.
because they need to figure things out for themselves and have, peaks and valleys as well too, for them to grow and persevere through character, as well as the scripture tells us. But how can people come alongside it? Not be ignorant either, and help protect your son and or your daughter, your family through the crazy hockey jungle too.
Yeah, I think you bring up yeah, I think you bring up a really cool point too. Guardians, we're on the wall, we're watching.
Yeah,
who's on your watchtower watching?
that's right. Yeah,
Or you just anybody come through the door.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool to think about. That there are guardians on the wall.
I gotta make some swag.
Right? And so if it's not Guardian Group, who is it? It doesn't have to be Guardian, but who's on the wall watching?
Right.
Are you, just out there first thought, first action, reactionary? Or do you have a strategy?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, thanks for saying that.
Thanks for being on the podcast, Ben Hughes. Thanks again for joining us. I want to give special thanks to our sponsor, M is Good. Want to learn more about M is Good? Go to misgood.com. Join us again next week as we continue to uncover the secrets to success with faith-based testimonies and the power of R7. Remember, destiny awaits, but time does not.